Okay, well, hi, Henry. Great to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Even though I've been working for Liberty for a while, I haven't seen you because you've been doing another role, haven't you? It doesn't necessarily cross over with mine. I thought what we'd do today, if you just introduce yourself, tell us about your new role, for which congratulations, and then we'll talk a bit about the Liberty brand.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Ben. Thanks for having me. So I'm Henry Nelson. I'm the incoming CEO for our UK and MENA business. I will be taking over from Mel O'Neill, who holds that role currently. She's been with Liberty. She's going to be retiring after 21 years at Liberty. Formally, I start at 1/1, but like all good things, that transition period started the day it got announced. You know, we've got reinsurance treaties to get put in place. We've got some significant renewals coming up at 1/1. We write a lot of the book, so very, very exciting to be taking on that role. It's a privilege. It's a fantastic business that we've got with some fantastic people in it. Prior to that role, I was the Chief of Staff for Liberty International Insurance, which is all of Liberty's international insurance units. And before that, I did various underwriting roles. And
you were a broker a long time ago.
A broker a very long time ago, yes.
So you see most of the market. And you report, just for the record, you're reporting into Luis?
Yeah, Luis Preto, that's exactly right. I've been working with Phil Hobbs for a couple of years, and we're now going to be working as part of Luis's team, which is great.
Fantastic. So with all that, you should know something about the business. So let's talk about it.
That's the logic behind it. Yeah, we'll see.
Let's talk about the brand. So what I thought I'd start with is just sort of looking ahead a bit. We're at an interesting point in the cycle in the market. What are the kind of main challenges and opportunities now, do you think, for Liberty as you look ahead?
Yeah, I think you're right. The market is past its inflection point, and that presents itself with a new challenge, I think, for our market, and particularly for us as we think about, we trade in all of the major insurance hubs around the globe as Liberty, but in London in particular, you know, we've got a material business here. And as we think about the flow of business around the world, the London market has definitely been inflated by lots of business coming in from the US over a couple of years, over the last few years, which has been phenomenally profitable. But actually, the market that we're trading in today needs a slightly different mindset. And that's something that we talk to our teams about a lot. You know, we've got a great value proposition that we sell here at Liberty. You know, we've got a long, historic and stable business, but our underwriters need to be in hunt mode at the moment. The business is no longer going to be coming to us. We need to go out and get that business.
So this is real competition now that we're talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, if we think about our broking partners and how they compete with each other, the insurance carriers are absolutely in that battle as well. It's incredibly important that mindset shifts as well.
Yeah. That's great. So you come into the real challenge, but also something you can get your teeth into.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I think, the good news is the portfolio is in great nick. The market's adequate. There's lots of good business on the books. That's great. But fundamentally, the challenge, I think, in the next phase of the cycle is going to be more on speed. Right. It's going to be more on service levels. It's going to be more on customer experience than it has been previously. I talked a little bit about value proposition before, and I know we will talk about brand shortly. Fundamentally, the rules of the game are changing slightly.
So that's interesting that you're one of the largest players in the market, big brand, but you're talking about really kind of fast, quick delivery, meeting those needs. And that's a sort of gear shift, is it, in the market as you see it?
I think it definitely is a gear shift. And if we think about the industry and the market as a whole, one of the challenges that we've had as we go into the sort of the top end of the market, we're through the top end of the market, expenses are definitely still a challenge at market level.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that the businesses are bloated, but I do think that speaks to the fact that we have struggled as an industry, particularly in the UK, but we struggle as an industry to really improve that sort of underwriter experience, as I will refer to it. Yeah. Having our value proposition is absolutely imperative. And, I believe that Liberty's got a very strong value proposition. That's part of the reason that we're big. It's part of the reason that we're at scale. It's part of the reason that our brand performs very well. But fundamentally, we now need to concentrate on delivering that value proposition as quickly as possible. If data was the sort of buzzword of the last market cycle, I think speed is going to be the buzzword of the next market cycle.
Got it. So I was kind of involved with this, and I think the LSM brand was originally launched in about 2015. So we're really coming up for 10 years, which is interesting. I mean, my God, that's gone quickly. But it is now really well established. And I think before that, it was often described as a sleeping giant, which it isn't now. It's much, much better known, as we know from our data. But how do you, especially now and looking ahead, how do you describe the brand? What's the sort of conversations you have with your clients and your brokers these days?
Yeah, I think, the first thing to mention is our mutual status.
Yeah.
We take the business of transferring risk from a customer's balance sheet onto our balance sheet incredibly seriously. And fundamentally, that's what we're doing, right? We're selling products, but we're also buying risk, and we're buying that risk in partnership with our customers and with our brokers. And our mutuality is very important to us. We're 112 years old. That, I think S&P 500, there was a study done a few years ago which said that the average age of an S&P 500 company was less than 20 years old. So, we are long-standing, but with that comes the trust and the expertise and the capabilities that you build up over time to stick with our clients through the tough times as well as the good. And I'm sure we'll talk a bit later about our claims proposition and all of the things that come with that. But fundamentally, that stability is very, very important to us. It allows us to take a longer term view. Yeah. And, I think we've demonstrated that over the past few years. When we've seen people trading in and out of markets, we haven't. We've stuck with it.
Yeah. So you are now that established player, that trusted, but you're also saying you need to have that kind of agility, often overused word, but it is about that speed and that real delivery. So you've got to meet those needs, even though often large players are seen as a bit slower than the challengers sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, if our value proposition and the brand is the what, the speed is the how. I think it's sort of broadly how I think about it. I do think the delivery has to change. You just cannot offer that value proposition that previously maybe we could have afforded to be a bit slower with. I mean that more broadly for the legacy players outside of this building as well. But, and some of our competitors. But I do think that becomes very important.
And I think, what comes across to me in this is that, and I have had many conversations over the years, large players, medium, small players. I think large players often come across as a little complacent about their position because they've got the capital base and, as you say, the relationships. But you're saying something quite different here, aren't you? You really are setting down a kind of challenge for Liberty itself to be as good as the best on service.
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think, we can't choose to try and be good at everything. That just doesn't work. And, we talked a little bit about, what is our brand synonymous with? And we are a quoting market. We are a lead market. Yeah. It's incredibly important to us. And I think as we've built the brand, you said we launched our brand in 2014, I think it was. As we've built up over time, we've really established that position in the market. It's hard earned that. And we mustn't lose that position, because that fundamentally that's what we do. That's the value that we add to the value chain as a whole. When I speak to brokers, and just having come very recently into this role, our brokers are asking us to lead more business. Yeah, they're asking us to get in front of clients more, to offer, and provide the insights that we've got. That's what they're looking for.
And I guess that leadership element is becoming more important, isn't it? As there is a sort of discourse around algorithmic follow businesses and the value of leads and so on and so forth. So I guess there is value in that as well, and superiority in being a leader, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, generating that real partnership, whether it's at point of underwriting, when we're coming up with different products and we're thinking about different ways that we can service our clients' needs, or in the event of a claim, right? Having that lead position in the London market, making sure that you're there when your customer needs you. Fundamentally, they are the front office at that stage. That's incredibly valuable, both to us and to our brand, but also to our customers.
So where do you see claims if you look ahead? Because it often, as much as people have said it's front of shop, it often hasn't been in reality.
Yeah.
But we do see in our data a lot of change in that area. Brokers are talking much more about it being used at point of sale and so on. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, there's no doubt that when we bring our integrated business unit to bear at the point of sale, so whether that's claims, whether that's actuarial, talking through what they're seeing in the models, whether that's our underwriters talking about the dynamics they're seeing in the broader market, talking about the claims experience or the trends that we're seeing in other parts of the portfolio, that is very, very valuable. And that really is what the customers want. They want perspective. Yeah, they want perspective on how their risk is stacking up against the market, the risk environment that's happening outside. It's hugely valuable. It's not just as simple as, paying your claims quickly.
Right, and so it's a much bigger footprint, really, as you look ahead on claims.
Yeah, and I think our claims handlers, they're playing a much more important role in the trade now, actually, which is a bit different. It has always been difficult to sort of, how do you monetize, or how do you sort of really generate that benefit out of a market-leading claims proposition? But fundamentally, it is beginning to sort of bear fruit, particularly with our bigger customers.
So the other really important aspect of brand, obviously, is the culture, if you like, that delivers it. And you're in that's a unique position. I've seen many heads of underwriting have been chief of staff before. So what's your kind of take on that? What's the importance of that? And in particular, in terms of liberty and what advantages it gives to the business?
Yeah, I think it's very tempting to drop in a sort of cliche here about culture versus strategy. But, one of the great privileges of the last couple of years, moving away from underwriting in the front office into an internal role, fundamentally being Phil's chief of staff, is, we've got a hugely diverse business with market-leading positions in lots of markets, whether it's the business we've got down in Australia, some of the businesses we have in Asia and Latin America and continental Europe. We've built up over the past 10 years or so to take real market-leading positions pretty much everywhere. And that has given me a front row seat, I suppose, into what good culture looks like. And the diversity of those cultures is obviously totally individual to those different regions, which is very, very valuable in itself, in of itself. But there are a couple of key themes that come out of all of them. One is empowerment. Fundamentally a culture that is based on having empowered individuals making good decisions, and for all of the rest of the business to be focused on ensuring that they are providing things that allow those people to make a higher percentage of good decisions and to make those decisions faster, is definitely consistent in what good culture looks like. And the trust that gets built with that, both externally and internally, is hugely valuable. I think the other thing is just the consistency of leadership, not changing tack, whether it's because of the external things that are going on or the internal things. I think that is very, very important. One of the things that is difficult, not impossible, but is difficult, is then globalizing that culture and scaling it. And what you mustn't do, if we think we are a global business, we've got global clients and global brokers, and we're dealing with global risks every day, having global consistency and having that sense of identity and communication globally is very, very important. However, sometimes globalization is sort of synonymous with slowing everything down. And so those, that empowerment, globalization, decision making, getting all of those things working in harmony is really, really important.
And it's probably, in other sectors, it's been one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? And many businesses have kind of got it wrong, because they haven't got the local and the global kind of in balance, as it were. I had one question is, do people now at Liberty, do you think they feel they work in a global business? Do you think I know you're doing a lot of work on on internal structures, which we won't bother going into now because that's a bit dull, but it is kind of clear that all that work and that effort has to go in to make a global business work. But do people feel part of that now? Do you think there's a huge point of superiority if they do?
A lot. I'll probably be unpopular for saying this, but when I sort of first joined Liberty, I joined a syndicate, right? And we were sat in a different building, and ultimately our relationship with the global business was, they sent capital in one direction, and the idea was we sent profit in the other, and broadly that was very successful. As we've brought the businesses together, there have definitely been some growing pains. But what I will say is, over the last 2 years, you referenced the transformation that we've been going through. Over the last 2 years, it does feel fundamentally different, and that is not just reflected internally with how people are beginning to see some of the opportunities that generates, whether it's career progression, talent pipelining, just learning about new stuff that's going on around the business. But externally, that's beginning to show up as well. The way that the global brokers are talking about us, the way that they're talking to us, the way that they're coming to us more strategically, the way that we're going to them in a more joined up fashion, it definitely feels different. And you can see that in the results. The results are improving as a result.
So 10 years ago, you were a much smaller business. In fact, much, much smaller than you are now. You've grown hugely. Others had too. I'm not saying but just thinking ahead now, and gosh, if you go through another sort of change in scale like that again, that would be amazing. But where do you see and sort of hope and expect LSM will be in the next, say, 3 years or something like that? We'll talk to you before 3 years, don't worry.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think when I think about where we've come from and where we've got to now, you're right. We've done a lot of growing. We've grown in every material market we operate in almost all of our products, in almost all of our distribution channels. And that's because the market's been there for us to do that. Yeah. And because in some cases we've had headroom, and in some cases, the cycle to a degree has dictated that that's what we should do. Mm. We do enter a different period for ourselves now. And that is not to say that growth is not on the agenda. Fundamentally, there's still good business out there. We've got our customers are increasingly coming to us, asking us to write more products to them, to do more with them. The brokers are doing the same thing. They're slimming down. Strategically, there's an element of consolidation going on.
Absolutely.
And we very much, are going to be a part of that. And so that in itself is very, very exciting. I definitely think that if we talk about the UK and MENA business, where do I hope that we are in 3 years' time, or where are we going to be? We will be recognised as a market-leading franchise that, looks to lead risk, to lead placements, to price risk, and that's incredibly important to us. We do also have to recognise that we're going to have to deal with the bifurcation of the market.
Yep.
And what we will have is we will have a very, very clear approach to how we're going to think about where we lead and where we don't. Mm. And where we choose that we're not going to lead, because you can't build capabilities in every product everywhere. We will have a very robust strategy with our broker partners in particular in this market to how we can access those profit pools, as frictionlessly as we possibly can.
And just to finish off, I think certainly we talked about brokers. When you think of clients, or you think of your brand now, how important is that to be recognised in those boardrooms, in those big Fortune 500 and big companies around the world?
Yeah, I think CEO surveys get done all the time, and what are the top 3 things that they're worried about? What are the top 3 things that we're worried about, etc., etc. And whether that's the geopolitical instability that we've got going on at the moment, whether that is the economic volatility that we're seeing in certain parts of the world, potential disruption to the supply chain, whether it's the technology transition that we're going through, the introduction of generative and language-based AI rather than just mathematical AI, whether, I can go on, not to mention climate change and all of those things. It is absolutely imperative that we are right there with our customers, thinking about how we're going to challenge those risks, how we're going to address those risks, how can we make sure that we are best placed to take the right parts of that risk off their balance sheet, and that allows them to trade in their markets and to grow and to deal with the various transitions that we've got going on. I think never has it been more important to be that type of trusted partner. Yeah. Just packaging up the same old products and pumping them out is plays a role. There's no doubt about that. The markets are broadly built on that, but fundamentally that partnership's going to be very important.
We talked earlier just about, if you don't have a brand, try operating without a brand. Yeah, imagine you think that would be very difficult now as an organisation like this.
Yeah, it's not one of those things that it's sort of quite difficult to reflect on how difficult it would be, because obviously working for the company that I do, working for Liberty, it's not, fortunately, it's one of the few problems that I don't have to think about.
Yes, yeah.
But I do think that the insurance industry and the London insurance industry at times has struggled with sort of external perception. Mm. And the brands and the companies that are still thriving are the ones that have had that really, really clear identity about what they are doing, what they're not doing, and what that brand integrity looks like. The idea of trying to start that from nothing now and go to market and get out in that, it is incredibly competitive out there at the moment. And the idea of trying to do that with nothing sat behind you, I think sounds...
And you can't do it overnight.
You definitely cannot do that overnight. That's right.
Henry, thanks very much. That was fantastic. What a great time to interview you as you move into a really challenging, interesting, competitive environment and a new role as well. So good luck with all of that. We'll talk again soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much for having me.